Hey folks, it's Mark here. I realised recently on Patreon that we have not had any new patrons for a couple of months, so you guys should just go and sort that out. In the time of Corona, we're all on furlough apart from Anna here, and we need money to buy yeast, because I still can't fucking find any, right? No matter where I go.
I told you, man, I've got hunters.
So please give us some money so I can go and order some off eBay, probably from Japan or something.
I don't know if I'd be using like yeast bought on eBay, man. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, unknown origin.
That's like using insulin bought in Alabama.
So go to patreon.com/unsungpod and you can see our fine rewards and decide which one is for you and how much money you want to throw away every month, and we will sort that out for you, hopefully.
Not that it matters. You're not going to get it anyway, are you?
It remains to be seen. But yes, please go do that. We would appreciate your support.
And in these difficult times, we fully understand if you feel like you can only afford to give us 80% of a respectable donation.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Unsung podcast. Chris is currently throwing things around the room because not only are we doing it remotely, but we can now see each other for the first time in about 3 weeks.
Felt this would give us extra chemistry. Yeah. I think we work a lot of subtle bodily cues in Dave's wardrobe, and we've been missing those two important elements for weeks now.
It's all about eye contact for me.
It does work.
Oh.
Just looking at Chris deep in the eyes while you can see his holy socks, folks.
But yes, this week we are joined by Anna Goldthorp again, as we do this second punk episode. So hi.
Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here.
It's good to
from my bedroom again. Last time I was doing the self-isolation before the COVID-19 really hit Scotland.
I think you've probably got the world record for isolation right now. You've been at it for ages.
I know. I was isolating before it was cool.
That's true.
You join us at the week we're doing the Distillers. This week we're doing Sing Sing Death House, and it should be a fun old chat. But before we get into that, has anybody got any culture they want to share with us that they've consumed over the course of the past 7 days?
But I think that's, we both know that that's just a cue for me to talk to you for a moment about how weird it was.
It was a loaded question, yeah.
We worked on that before the show. Mark and I both decided to watch WrestleMania, split over 2 nights for the first time, because it's a show.
I was going to do it, you did it.
A show too big for one night,
damn.
As opposed to a show too contagious for one single sitting. That was fascinating. Watching wrestling without 80,000 screaming goons is a very odd experience.
Yeah, really strange. And it's also really odd that they're still doing it when a lot of other sports, most other sports, pretty much all sports have stopped, with the exception of the Belarusian Premier League, which I keep getting emails from all the bookies about randomly. Mm-hmm. And
the Zanzibar Football League is still going as well.
Wow. See, these are the things that they keep us going in these times. One thing that I've seen is UFC 249 is still going to go ahead on the 18th of April, and apparently it's going to take place on a private island, which means Dana White is going to be doing Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
It's basically Mortal Kombat.
Is it on Epstein's Island? It should be on Epstein's Island.
It should. And in between bouts, it's like a platform game where for every hidden child that you find, you get 50 points.
Are the remains of, or
20 points? But yeah, we should probably press on with this episode. We've also Brea Quinn from the band Braticus has sent us in like a little voice note, because Brea and her sister Ona are big fans of them. But Brea had some thoughts, and we'll skip over to them later on. But yeah, Mark, this is your choice. You may as well get the ball going.
So as I said at the end of last week's episode, I picked this record because I hadn't really spent time with it for a long while. I don't think I'd listened to it properly since 2010, and it came out in 2002, which is when I first heard it. So it's been a wee while.
Anna, were you OG?
Oh, aye. Aye. Oh, aye. I was a mega Distillers fan from when I was 15, so 2001.
Yeah. It's about the same time, yeah. So I thought it'd be cool to revisit something and kind of get a reappraisal of it to see if it's held up, I guess, or if it's to the test of time. So I picked this one as opposed to Coral Fang, which I think is probably, it's definitely the biggest Distillers record, right? There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it was on their major label. It was the last Distillers record to date, and a lot of people seem to prefer it over this, which I think is baffling, frankly. But we'll get into that, I suppose, during this episode. But Dave, Chris, did you guys spend much time with Distillers before this?
I think City of Angels was on a Kerrang compilation, as most of my music education was. And my girlfriend at the time absolutely fucking loved Distillers. I never really got into it. I think once again my musical upbringing was shaped by the fact that there were no Distillers records in Inverness HMV, so I was never able to buy one, and therefore I was never able to get to know it. Yeah, I've kind of always known of them and I know songs, but yeah, never really got to actually sit down with a record before.
So Chris, you were like 25 when this record came out?
I was already in my 40s. And I'll get this out the road. I really associate Distillers with the Process of Belief album by Bad Religion as well, because my girlfriend at the time because my girlfriend at the time was a big fan of both, and yeah, they were on heavy rotation in her flat. Her sister was a big fan too, and I have time for them. I did that weird pruning thing on my iTunes, which is I used to delete the stuff that I really didn't like. I didn't keep just a full album if I thought most of it was dross. And whilst I don't think Distillers are dross, I noticed that I only had about 6 or 7 tracks from across their catalogue on my iTunes. So I do think at times they were really good, but none of their records really grabbed me for the duration, albeit, a little bit older and I've got a bit more of a considered approach to albums. So I've quite enjoyed this one in terms of immersing myself in it. It's not a genre that I listen to a serious amount of stuff from, but she especially is better than most. She's more charismatic, she's a better singer, more engaging personality. Yeah, I mean, I've got time for it. I had some time for them. I mean, I'm going to be the least fashionable person on this panel because I really like Spinneret, so we can get to that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we'll get to that.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, they're alright.
Yeah, I can tell you've seen that through gritty teeth. So Distillers wasn't actually Brody Dalle's first band. She had a band called Sourpuss in 95.
She actually posted a video of of a concert they played on her Facebook recently in the last couple of years. So it's like somebody recorded their first show, I think it was in high school, and she actually posted it on their Facebook so you can actually see them and hear what they sounded like.
I mean, like Distillers and Brody Dalle are sort of inseparable, especially by the fact that by the time they got to Coral Fang, she was the only original still playing. So we will probably use the two interchangeably at points. But I think it's worth recapping Brody Dalle's backstory a wee bit, because it's extremely interesting and it plays, I think, a large part in the trajectory of her band. And I think from what Brea was saying as well in her comments, she feels the same. That there was a lot of the personal mixed with the artistic in terms of how people received the records.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that when she was a teenager, the way that she got involved with Sourpuss was through like a School of Rock type thing that she went to in Melbourne, where she met other young musicians and they formed bands, and Sourpuss then got on the bill at what was the name of the festival? Rock Am Ring?
Somersault.
Oh, Somersault. Right.
Somersault's the one where she met Tim Armstrong.
Okay.
I know that.
Yeah, and that was
1995.
Yeah, that was when she was playing in Sourpuss. She met him backstage. But I actually had also read at one point that she had first met her other future husband, Josh Homme, backstage at a festival when she played with Sourpuss, but I don't know, that might have just been...
No, I think she was 18 when she met him. It was like 1997 when she met Josh Homme.
Right, okay.
I believe. and she met Tim Armstrong in 1985. So yeah, they'd known each other for a while. Her real name was Brie Joanna Alice Robinson. She took the name Dalle from the actress Beatrice Dalle from the film Betty Blue. She didn't move to LA until she was 18. I'm going to come back to that because I think it's relevant, especially as regards accents. She had a fairly difficult childhood. There was a fair bit of sexual abuse, I believe, which she ended up involved in court proceedings till she was like nearly 15 related to that.
There's an interesting point with that. I don't know if you've got it, but one of the reasons that she moved to LA is because she'd won quite a lot of money from that court case. That's kind of what set up her and the Distillers in LA as a band, you know. So I think that's an important thing to kind of highlight there. Like, it'll probably come up later on, and we will definitely touch upon it, but a lot of people think that Tim Armstrong paid for everything at the start of the band's career, which is completely not the case.
He doesn't come out of this.
No, he does not.
This entire story. I mean, he'd met her when she was 16, and they married as soon as she turned 18. He was 30 when he met her. Let's just let that hang in the air a wee bit. He was 30 and in a very successful and influential band, and she was a 16-year-old with drug issues, a history of sexual abuse, and he'd been expelled from like 2 different Catholic schools, originally had been training as an Olympic swimmer, had dropped out, had gone into, let's say, alternative punk lifestyle, drinking, smoking a lot of weed. She was like a troubled young woman, and she met this considerably older man, at least if you take it proportionally. And I think the difference between like a 16-year-old meeting a 30-year-old, it's very different from like a 25-year-old meeting a 40-year-old. Just when someone is that young and that impressionable and coming for that kind of difficult background, especially with drug problems, there's a real level of dependency that goes with that. So yeah, she moved to LA when she was 18, but I mean, she was married to a famous American musician by that point. Whilst she probably used her own money to do that, I'm not saying that Tim Armstrong paid her flights. How much of that was done in order to be there and to be with him and to see this as her big break? There's a lot of influences going on in the background there. But yeah, she moved to LA. In 1998 she formed the Distillers with someone called Kim Chi, which I just think is really funny. They changed lineup quite a bit, but that was a lineup for Kim Chi, her and 2 others. Do you guys know who they were for the first album, the eponymous one? Yeah,
it was Casper was her the other woman's nickname, but her name was actually Rose. Yeah. And the guy's name
was Matt Young.
Yeah, he was the drummer.
So they recorded the eponymous album, the debut one, together. What are your thoughts on that?
I really liked it at the time because I got into them in 2001. So that was the only album that was out for me to access at that point. And I did really enjoy it. I first heard the Distillers through being a Rancid fan and Distillers being on Give 'Em the Book compilations. And I enjoyed it. I liked their cover of Ask the Angels by Patti Smith. Obviously a absolutely iconic female punk singer. However, it is just like a version of Patti Smith's song that's like almost like an impersonation. And then there's the wee hidden track at the end that's a solo version of Young Girls that was then later re-recorded for the Sing Sing Death House album. That was a nice wee add-on at the end. They're pretty raw lyrics in it, which I think refer to Brody's teenage years in Melbourne. I believe that Gertie Rouge, who's mentioned in it, was one of her friends as a teenager who was abused as well. So there's a sad story underlying there. But aside from that, a decent punk album. I think for me it was just really exciting to get into something that was quite raw with female vocals.
Oh, Serena's a pretty good song.
Yeah, that's a good song.
I liked it. I like Idolist and The World Comes Tumbling as well. Colossus USA is pretty cool. Gypsy Rose Lee is also a highlight, but I think it's, on the whole, I think it's probably too long. It's about 40 minutes long, and I don't think it really needs to be that long, even though it's got a couple of songs on it under 2 minutes and one that's under a minute. But it's definitely, you can see the genesis of her songwriting though, right? One of the things which we probably touch upon, but I think it's probably worth sort of pointing out this early on, is she's got a style, and that style is like throughout all of her music. I remember when I was a wee guy, particularly with Sing Sing Death House, a lot of people were saying that, when Coral Fang came out, they were like, Tim Armstrong helped her write the first 2 records, and then obviously George Holm helped the third one. But that's clearly not true, because she's got her own voice. I don't mean that like vocally, but as an artist, and you can hear that throughout everything. And it starts here. It does sound a little bit, it's not fully formed yet at this point on this record, not by any means. But I think it's pretty cool. I don't really spend much time with that. Yeah, I think it's a good stepstone towards what would become, I guess, her sound, I suppose, or the Distillers sound.
Yeah. See, as somebody that doesn't really have a dog in the fight, I would say it's interesting that people think Tim Armstrong wrote songs for the first 2 albums, given that for me they're better than Rancid songs. So why would he do that?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because the reason I was thinking about this when I was doing the notes for Sing Sing Death House, there's a lot of stuff, particularly in Sing Sing Death House, that sounds a bit like Rancid. There's a couple which are like could almost be on Rancid 2000. They're kind of
definitely
punk, kind of self-titled album. But when they do the hardcore punk songs are way more hardcore punk than Rancid ever were. I think sonically it sounds a bit like Rancid, probably because he was so controlling over her career. That's one of the things that's been quite well documented, is he had quite a lot of control over her, both with this record and Sing Sing Death House. I think he always referred to it as keeping it in the family. So who she worked with, who was in the band, the shows she did, the tours she did, he was very controlling. And if you're Brody Dalle and you're enamoured by Tim Armstrong, right, and married to him, like, some of the music's going to rub off on you, right? Clearly it is.
Of course.
But I mean, I think going so far as saying that Tim helped her write the songs, I think is clearly bullshit.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I remember at the time I was on the Distillers forum, and there was loads of folk that would say that stuff about Tim Armstrong, how he'd written the different songs. And see as well how you're talking about how he controlled who she spent time with and the people that she was surrounding herself by. When you look at the sleeve notes on the album, all the thank yous in it are to people who are part of Hellcat Records. It's all familiar names, people who are in different bands that Tim Armstrong was friends with, like Davey Havoc, Nick 13, all of these type of people. And it's just as though it was all consuming for her, the relationship and the band. And yeah, I think that he was very controlling, and the stuff that you would see people writing about on the internet at the time emphasised that for me.
Yeah, I mean, that entire dynamic, the age difference, the fact that she was on his label, the fact that she moved thousands of miles, the kind of aspirational nature of it, the fact, he's already a very prominent and a highly sought after connection in the music industry. There's so many things that speak to an imbalance of power in that relationship, and the very close social circle that seems very managed, all these kind of things. It's creepy. There's no really any more elaborate way to put it. It just feels kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And being on Hellcat as well for the first 2 albums, it's like it's too close. It seems very, very unflattering in terms of your opinions of Tim Armstrong as a guy.
What I would also say though is, Tim Armstrong back in the day, he was a total babe. So it's not like it's just been, I think, manipulated by his power. I think that you could quite easily get sucked in by someone who's not only in a famous band but is very physically attractive if you're into the punk scene. So although I believe that he certainly used this situation to his advantage, there must have been love there at a time, at least for both of them for a while. And then this is going forward a wee bit, but after the Distillers left Hellcat, I get the impression that Hellcat Records just kind of fell apart. They were their most popular band, aside from Rancid, obviously, and they didn't then seem to have the same roster anymore. They didn't seem to hold the same clout anymore, and he was probably seeing her as a way of continuing to make money.
Opinions of him dipped, you know. Yeah. I mean, he went out of his way, as we'll no doubt mention, to rubbish her. I mean, to blacklist anybody involved in the band, effectively on the punk scene, using all his influence. I mean, that does not help the picture in retrospect as regards how healthy and balanced the relationship was. What you end up with is without any definitive proof, you end up with a lot of like red flags and some really manipulative and quite nasty behaviour. So it's I mean, obviously we don't have the insight, but I think he does nothing throughout the course of the next however many years to really turn that around, including when she gets married to Josh Homme and he's sending Josh Homme death threats, and you come out with this with no sympathy for Tim Armstrong.
Oh, well. Chris, he's a total creep. Totally. He's a total creep. I remember not long after they had broken up, Rancid were on tour, and Rancid and Alkaline Trio were both playing at the Barras. Alkaline Trio on the Thursday or the Friday, say, and then Rancid the next night. And Tim Armstrong and Lars Fredriksson were at the gig, and the two of them were hanging about outside the girls' toilets. There was a queue at the girls' toilets, and they were just standing at the queue, like chatting up all the wee lassies that were waiting to go in and use the toilet. And I remember being so shocked because it was these guys from this famous punk band that I loved, but also that even at that time I still could recognise, oh God, that is so creepy that he got with Brody when she was so young, and he's clearly trying to repeat that same pattern of going after young women.
Totally, there's so much about punk that you want to sort of idealise, in the sense that it's a reaction to the excesses of cock rock and of pop and all those kind of horrible corrupting influences of money. Then you see people like that and you realise, no, it's fucking not. It's not at all. Like, look at like Brand New. I mean, it's absolutely not. Yeah, okay, maybe it's more endemic in a culture like hair metal 80s stuff where they brag about it, but it's surreptitiously it's prevalent within a lot of the punk stuff as well, and that's what we're only realising.
I was going to say that I'm probably going to I'm taking a much harder line on this. I like Rancid, or liked Rancid, and I think Lars Fredriksson is one of the most professional men for the most part, but fuck it, man, it's predatory behaviour. This is a guy who clearly is looking to take advantage of somebody's dependency issues, whether that is psychologically or otherwise, and the exerting that amount of control over her at such a young age and reacting so viscerally when they broke up as well is definitely a result of someone who is clearly a broken person in and of himself. Like his trials with, you know, drinking, drugs and all that are very well documented, but you know, that is properly like he's taking advantage of somebody there.
Can I just make an acknowledgement actually from what Anna said? I'm saying, we're only just realising it. Anna just said it herself, like, young women in the punk scene knew it.
Yeah.
It's us men that just didn't want to see it about the people that we really liked. Right. So I mean, you saw that. When was that gig that you're talking about, Anna, with the toilets?
Well, it would have been not long after they broke up, and Coral Fang came out in 2003.
I think, was that not when Rancid
just
came
after
out
they
as well?
broke up? So
that like the major label record they did as well, Indestructible.
That
would have been on that tour, right?
Yeah.
My point being, this wasn't a secret for young women that were going to punk shows. This was just very selective on the part of us, Mark, Dave. We just didn't really want to know these things about the people that we thought were an answer to the excesses of these other genres.
Also, worth saying, I don't want to make it sound like I'm defending them, but like at the time as well, the access to that knowledge was not as readily available as it is now.
Was it? Maybe it was.
You're going.
Maybe women were saying it. We just didn't want to hear it.
It's possible, but like,
well, I don't know. What I would say about it is that, so as a teenager in the punk scene in Glasgow and touring bands coming over, nobody talked about feeling as though they were being exploited or taken advantage of when bands came here on tour. But certainly the young women at the time, myself included, actively encouraged each other to go and speak to the guys in the bands, and then other stuff may have happened with them, but I never knew of anybody feeling like it was wrong at the time. But now, looking back on it and looking back on my own experiences, realising that was so wrong, that these men were so much older and taking full advantage of that situation. It's hindsight for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason though to talk about the ability to make certain decisions, though, isn't it? If you're a young person, I mean, I was the same. Like, you're not making particularly informed and sensible decisions if you're a young woman daring your friend to go up and try and, you know, get a him. That's because you're young, and that's why you're vulnerable, because you make stupid, rash decisions, and older, manipulative, opportunistic people are ready to take advantage of them, and you maybe don't necessarily know what you're getting into, and then you're in over your head and end up doing something that you didn't actually want to do.
Yeah, when I was like an 18-year-old or 16-year-old boy, and I'd make a stupid decision and end up with my finger stuck in something, or, you know, but yeah, people weren't.
me too, Weaver. Me
People
too.
weren't, you know, taking advantage of me or whatever. So yeah, that's the difference.
That's exactly what statutory rape's about. You know what I mean? It's not about is there love there, is there? But it's fact is, no, you're not ready to make these kind of decisions. Sit the fuck down. Like, we're making it for you. You'll make a mess of this, and unfortunately, there's too many people sitting there like Tim Armstrong waiting for somebody to just qualify. 16, perfect.
Yeah, totally.
I know that was a bit of a tangent, but the point was, like, the allegations, I think, are Rancid, Tim Armstrong being behind their better material early on. I don't really buy. I'm not saying that there's not a wee bit of influence. I'm sure everybody's been influenced, but this is the same argument that fucking Courtney Love faced with Kurt Cobain, and there's more than a few parallels between Brody Dalle and Courtney Love, and I don't think Brody Dalle really benefits for that, to be fair to her.
No.
But I would say one of the comparisons is the voice, and in some respects Brody Dalle does invite that criticism, because there is no way. I mean, she was a big Hole fan, she was a big fan of Nirvana, she was a big fan of West Coast and Northwest American music when she was growing up, albeit she kind of got into punk more. But the fact that she moved to LA when she was 18, I mentioned I would come back to this, she moved to LA when she was 18, and by a year and a half later she's recording that album, and the West Coast American drawl is so pronounced, it's so strong. You're just asking for criticism. She's got a really powerful voice, and I like her voice more when you hear less of the Seattle accent in it, because it sounds more like her. And I think she's a great singer. It's just as frustrating when she strays into that emulation territory of Courtney Love.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a Trojan horse for all these other arguments of, she's one of those women that lets guys write her songs. It's like, no, she's not.
Yeah, I think that's true. But she was also, at the time, her vocals were compared to Joan Jett, which I think you can also hear in her. And Wendy O. Williams from the Plasmatics. You can hear her as well in them. They've got deeper voices, and I think part of the problem is because she impersonates that accent that Chris has been talking about, you then just hear Courtney Love in her. You forget that there's all these other female punk singers, rock singers that also have deep voices that were just as iconic for their own bands, but Courtney Love's comparison just overrides them all.
Listen, I can forgive that, because, you know, you're in your early 20s, you're still trying to find who you are as a musician and as a person. You know, who in a band in their early 20s didn't
Yeah, and I think like into
Yeah, totally.
there's still bands out there not from America who are playing punk rock with an American accent.
Well, in fact, Josh Homme called Tim Armstrong a fake English accent singing fucking copycat motherfucker.
Yeah, it's so
That's
true.
exactly fucking true, man. He sounds like fucking Joe Strummer. It sounds like Joe Strummer.
He's a Joe
Absolutely
Strummer
true.
impersonator. He just wants to fucking be Joe Strummer.
Yeah.
Hence why he signed the Mescaleros onto Hellcat for a period. He's a fucking phony, man. He's a faux punk.
So you mentioned, obviously, after Sing Sing Death House and after her and Tim Armstrong split up, there was a lot of fallout from that. There was a lot of recriminations and basically a PR campaign to
Essentially,
defame her.
yeah.
Just in terms of like that rocky period where she was trying to shake that off. Brea had some kind of interesting observations on that, so we'll play a wee bit of the voice note that Brea sent us about this. She's in the band Braticus, and Brea's voice is particularly strong and idiosyncratic, and has invited quite a few comparisons with Brody Dalle.
It's a shame how down on Brody Dalle people are in general. I think maybe one of the reasons is because of that stigma people have about her because of the Tim Armstrong thing. As soon as she had any bit of fame at all, people were like, oh, you're just copying Courtney Love, and oh, your husband's write all your music for you and stuff. It's such a shame that people won't just give her a break and just, I don't know, accept her for what she is and let her just make her music, because she's so talented, and it's great that she just keeps on going, but she just seriously has to put up with so much abuse. It must be really difficult. A lot of Distillers fans who were more, oh, I'm diehard punk and I only listen to punk music, were really quite critical of the Spinneret album, and were really not very nice about it online and to her. And I just think that's a real shame, because I think it's some of the best stuff she's ever done. The songs are really well crafted. Everything is just so well put together. I just feel each song is so great in its own right, and it takes you on a journey. It's a shame that people couldn't see past it not being like screamy punk anymore and just enjoy it. It's kind of similar to when they put out the 2 new Distillers songs a couple of years ago, and they were more in the vein of the stuff that Brody had been doing on her solo album, and they weren't quite as shouty and fast as maybe some Distillers songs had been in the past, and a lot of people were like, oh, what is this? It was just, she's not going to want to play the same kind of music she did when she was 20 years old. Let them have some kind of musical progression. And yeah, they're great songs anyway. I love them. But I thought it was really cool, because after they put them out and people had been online bad-mouthing them, the next gig they played, they went on stage, and their song that they played as they walked on stage was No Regrets by Edith Piaf. I thought that was really cool. In saying that, though, she definitely has obviously a lot of fans as well. I actually got to see her play live in the garage when she came with her solo tour, and it was definitely my favourite gig I've ever been to ever in my life. It was just a really nice atmosphere. Everyone was really happy to be there, and just there to kind of sing along and have a good time and dance, and there wasn't like loads of violent mosh pits and stuff. It was just people who were just overjoyed to be hearing these songs. And she came out on stage and they went straight into Die on a Rope and then Bullet in a Bullseye. She played Distillers songs from across all the different albums, and she played a Spinneret song, and she played her solo song. So it was really just the perfect gig to go to for a Brody Dalle fan. You got to experience a bit of everything, because I had been too young to see any of her bands play before. So it was really a really cool moment for me. She was really nice to all of the fans and everything, and it was just like a really nice experience. And she high-fived me while she was performing Ghetto Love. Oh, quickly, before I finish, actually, I want to talk about the song Underworld from her solo album, because I just think it's incredible. It starts off as just kind of a normal rock song, and it's really great, and then at the end she blends mariachi into it, and it's so good. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely check it out.
think it's interesting that Brea gets compared to Brody, because I think I've said to you before, Chris, that I think Brea actually really sounds like either of the female singers in F minus. Who were a really powerful punk band who were also on Hellcat at the time, and Brody sang on the Leftover Crack song Muppet Nambla, and on a different version of that same song called Muppet Namblin', it was the women from F minus that sang on it. And it's interesting to think about Brea then also sounding like F minus.
One of the things I was going to say is, like, given that we're still talking about it now, I think it's really interesting that Brea picked up on the fact that Brody Dalle often doesn't get the credit she deserves, as we've just discussed earlier on this episode, that legacy still follows her even to this day. Tim Armstrong's still got quite a lot to answer for because of that.
Yeah.
You know, that legacy seems to continue to follow her, even though her music is nothing like any of that anymore.
Yeah. And I was quite interested to hear Brea's comments about the persecution that Brody suffers from, because I didn't realise that was still a thing.
Yeah, same.
Because I obviously was into her a long time ago and observed all of the stuff in real time. I saw all of that happening, and I still see occasionally things on the internet where something about the Distillers is shared and people will respond saying they're not a real punk band. I mean, don't even go there on these types of arguments, but to find out that Brea is seeing things where Brody is spoken about so negatively really shocks me, because all I see is positive stuff about her and how iconic she is and how she's had such a fantastic career. So it's a wee bit depressing, actually, to hear that she's still getting that negativity, you know?
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that Brea is in a proper hardcore punk band, and I think her favourite album by Distillers is Coral Fang, the mainstream, or the more mainstream, the major label one. Yeah, it's interesting that she is such a fan of the one that, I don't know, takes melody more seriously, has clean vocals.
Yeah, we spoke a wee bit before the recording. She's a huge fan of the Coral Fang album, I believe, saying that she can't think of one way it could be better. And I have to say, Mark, I'm sure you're going into a wee bit more detail here, but I think it's much better as an album. Yeah. I think the songwriting on it is much more mature and nuanced and varied. It's more dynamic in pace. Obviously we'll go over the songs in Sing Sing Death House. There's some very, very good songs in that, but there's some truly fucking excellent songs on Coral Fang, as well as not a lot of flab. It's a good length, and in terms of like Unsung, I realise it's their most high profile album, but you know, it's kind of surprising to see how poorly Coral Fang actually performed given when it came out. I mean, that was still a fairly big selling era. It only got to 97 in the States and 46 in the UK, despite having like Drain the Blood and Beat Your Heart Out on it. And then when you consider that it's also in amongst some of the album tracks got stuff like The Gallows God.
What a surprise! Well, what a surprise! What a surprise! What a surprise! What a surprise!
The title track, Coral Fang, and it's got that track Dying a Rope, which I think's a total fan favourite.
Yep.
I mean, I think that is still very unsung for a punk album, and albeit it's their most prominent, but I think over the piece in the punk spectrum of things, I think it warrants the title more. And I know, like, we'll talk about Sing Sing Death House, but there's just a lot of personality to that album. Like I said, it's 44 minutes, 11 tunes, really has a very modest reception in terms of like sales figures. Also, but have you ever noticed with that, you know, that album has got that really quite iconic cover of like a nude female body on a crucifix. It's black and white and then red.
It was banned. It was banned.
Yeah, it was. But have you seen the second cover?
Yeah, it's the wee animals drawings. It's amazing.
It's this really sarcastic sort of yellow sunsetty cover with giraffes and dolphins and raccoons and stuff.
I remember at the time it was it Walmart had refused to put it on the shelves.
Seems like a Walmart.
Sounds like something they do.
Yeah, and that was why they got the alternative cover. The original artwork was by Tim Presley, was the artist. Chris, it's interesting that you're saying that you like Coral Fang as their best album, because to me I think it's got a more grungy sound, so it would fit for me that would be more up your street. And if we're talking about anybody's partner at that time having an influence in their life, as happens with all of us, I think you could probably say, well, maybe then when Brody got into a relationship with Josh, the type of music that he makes would have then encouraged her to perhaps listen to more of that type of rock band, or bands that she used to listen to as a teenager when she was in Sourpuss, when she played in a grunge band, and trying a period where she's maybe trying to find herself again, and that's why there's been a change.
I kind of get the feel, I mean, Josh Homme, more than just being in the band, as a producer, I don't necessarily think it's a case of him being involved in your songwriting, but I think it's a case of him saying, by the way, you've got a great voice, what if you like slowed this down and let your voice actually come through a wee bit? And then when you hear the Spinneret album, which I unfashionably think is actually really pretty good, there are a couple of tracks in that, All Babes Are Wolves and Driving Song. Which I think are as good as anything.
That album was also produced by Gil Norton, who, you know, had done stuff like Foo Fighters and Patti Smith and everything.
The production in that album is quite big. It's quite full. It's got that kind of Queens of Stone Age, really quite saturated frequency spread thing.
I was born in a bathroom, baby. Oh, babe, I would die for you. Oh, babe, I will never stray.
And I mean, I think that's as much the result of encouragement from your spouse as opposed to
absolutely
actual creative involvement. Just saying, look, you don't have to bat away. What about if you try letting this come through? Because she admitted herself she was listening to Nirvana and Hole and Soundgarden and all these bands way back in the early 90s, so it's not like a new discovery.
Totally. And I think it would be insulting to say any different.
So Mark, I guess the challenge is looking at the album in a bit more detail. Convince me that it's better than Coral Fang.
Now that I've reacquainted myself with this record and listened to it a fair amount over the course of the last week, I don't think Distillers have made a good, solid, front to back, consistent record.
Okay, let's go home.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
you could have told us that 40 minutes ago, Mark.
But I prefer Sing Sing Death House to the other two albums because it's got that kind of it's got that kind of reckless abandon to it. The lyrics are quite naive in a lot of ways, which I quite like. It's got a lot more life to it than the Distillers, the self-titled first album did. I like it because it is incomplete as a record, I think, but it also shows that she's a very good pop songwriter or a good pop rock songwriter, and that's evident in a few of the songs on Sing Sing Death House. It's more evident in Coral Fang, but I don't think that album hangs together as well as this one.
I think we also need to say about the lineup change after the first album.
Yeah.
So when they brought out Sing Sing Death House, that was recorded with Casper, Brody, Ryan Sin and Andy Granelli. And Andy at the time had been in the Nerve Agents, which were also a brilliant punk, like a kind of horror punk band on Hellcat Records. so still surrounding Brody with Hellcat people.
Yeah.
But when the album came out, Casper left the band not long after that, and then Tony joined, so he joined them to tour and play gigs, but wasn't actually featured on the album.
Yeah, and Casper's actually on one of the songs on this as well. She actually does the verse and Hate Me, but we'll get. I suppose we'll come back to that. But yeah, so it starts a sick of it all, which kind of does feel a little bit like Rancid. Unlike Rancid, it's just a lot more muscular. Like it's like a much bigger sounding song. It's got the same kind of feel. It's got that kind of proper like late 90s SoCal feel, which Rancid never really had. It's kind of more akin to Bad Religion, but it's still got the same kind of melodic thing. Yeah. There we go.
Someone said it and it wasn't me.
Yeah, and we've spoken about it. I'll just bring it up again. She sounds like Courtney Love, like singing Joan Jett, or Joan Jett doing Courtney Love, whatever you want to do. That's why I like her voice so much. And like I said, I can totally forgive the Aussie doing an American accent. And I think the chorus is pretty cool as well. I think it's a quite good song. It's a good opener. Does anybody want to
it's a brilliant opener, and it was also the first track on the Give 'Em the Boot 3 compilation, so it was well recognised that this is a really punchy opener, a strong song, absolutely brilliant vocals on it, so strong. The bass line in it sounds really strong as well, and that Give 'Em the Boot compilation, the liner notes was a huge poster of Brody that you could fold out, and I was saying to Mark earlier, I was surprised he didn't have it on his bedroom wall, because I think every other teenager did. Yeah, totally.
And then it's got the next song's I Am a Revenant, which is actually the first song I'd heard by the Distillers.
It raps like betrayal, and I'm running in the squalor of some. Do you remember the way? I remember the hate. I remember that it rained for years in the place.
I think somebody sent me it on MSN Messenger, like, you got to check out this band. I was like, alright, cool.
Oh, is that
Yes.
like someone you were trying to like pure chat up? They're like,
Yes.
what kind of thing you listen
So
to?
I heard it and I was like, holy shit, that's really good. And then afterwards I went to Kazaa, remember Kazaa? And downloaded a handful of tracks from this record. So I'd never actually heard this record in full until like many years later, when I had a faster internet
Oh my
connection.
God.
Yeah, totally.
I was so hyped for this CD coming out. It came out just around my 16th birthday. I remember going up the town with my pals on a Saturday afternoon, going into the Virgin Records or Virgin Music, whatever it was, on Argyle Street, and picking that up at the same time as I picked up the Tiger Army Early Years EP, and just being so hyped, because the two things just epitomised what I was into at that time.
So I've got my pal John to thank for that. I don't think he listens, but I'll tell him to listen for this episode. To me, the main riff in this song sounds a bit like The Offspring, but is that maybe just Bad Religion by another name? Hard to say, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the drive. I like the driving rhythm of the song, and the chorus is fucking massive. Not just in the amount of vocals that are in it, but also it's just super catchy. And straight away, these first two songs, this record, you can tell this is a step up songwriting wise from the first album. It's more focused on, and like you said, Chris, you're probably right. Like, somebody at a major label had seen on the first record, these guys have got something, and they've been told, do an album, then come to the major. Clearly Brody is writing with that end goal in mind at this point, so the whole first half of this record is full of fucking slamming choruses.
Yeah, I think Seneca Falls is a particularly good
Oh,
chorus as well.
yes. That one, I sound like such a cliche saying this, but every year when it comes around to International Women's Day, I always end up sharing that on Facebook or something, because it's just so amazing, so rebel rousing, the lyrics in it. I just love it so much.
I like that it's like talking about feminist activists, but also it's a little bit naive, and that's also another reason why I like it. The lyrics could be a little bit more thought-provoking, I guess. But you know, she's in her late
Yeah.
20s. She's like trying to have a voice. I
Yep.
like that about it. And the chorus, you're right, it's huge, and you can see the evolution here. Like I just said, like the melodies in this song are tighter than anything on the first album. It just feels a lot more ambitious from a songwriting point of view as well. The young crazed feeling is, I fucking adore that song.
Yeah.
Right, so I have one major reservation about the song. You spoke about naive
got
lyrics,
it
right?
in the
See that
end.
bit in it, which is like my name is Brody. Like
I know. I know.
It's a total
It
youthful
is.
naivety, man, absolutely. But it's a good reflection on how she got to where she was, and I find that really endearing. I find this song, even now, like some almost 20 years since it came out, I find like a really endearing song. It's got like a descending kind of changeover bit towards the end, which is a total pop, like SoCal pop punk like staple. But it doesn't really sound like a pop punk song. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, there's the lyric in it, I've got freedom in my youth. I mean, yeah, she's not trying to be discreet about the fact that she's a young woman. She's telling the story of her life, and she's being punk in her way about it, and you've got to respect that about her. She did it well.
Now, see, earlier on when I was saying about, I think they're at their best when she does the strong, gruff vocal, but you can't pin it to the Courtney Love thing. I think the title track, Sing Sing Death House, the next one, is one of the best examples of that. Really leaning into her style, but yet she leans into her style without there being any mimicry, as far as I can tell, and I really enjoy that when she does that.
I'm have to correct you in that, Chris, because the enunciation of every single lyric in this song is pure Tim Armstrong.
Oh, like London,
No,
mate.
it's
Yeah, like
not so much the
that.
London thing, but the way that he slurs when he sings a lot. That she does that a lot in this song. I hate to say that because I fucking love this song. This was this is the first song I downloaded of Kazaa. For some reason it was this one. After John has sent me I Am a Revenant, and I love this song. It's great. The lyrics are complete fucking nonsense, don't get me wrong, but the chorus is cool as hell. I don't know if it's aged very well though, because it sounds very early 2000s.
No, I mean, I think for me, it's hard for me to listen to these songs now and separate them from listening to them as a teenager and being so hyped and so into them, to then listen to them now as an adult. I don't think I can analyse them properly without going back to my interpretation as a teenager. Maybe if I heard these songs now for the first time, I would feel differently about them and the way that they were written. Maybe I wouldn't respect them as much, but I just get pure nostalgia when I listen to this stuff because I was so deeply immersed in it at the time, and I absolutely love it all still. But that said, there's a lot of bands that I listened to back then that I would never even bother listening to now, and I would still love to hear the Distillers anytime now.
Yeah, the next one's Bullet in the Bullseye, which, that bass tone, by the way, I fucking hate that bass tone. There's just something about it which makes me cringe.
It's good bass chops.
Yeah, a guy can play.
It's like a bit of a showcase.
Guy can totally play. I think it sounds like something off the self-titled Rancid album, the 2000 one, but the lyrics don't sit well with me in this song. I'm not a fan of this one. I think it could be taken off the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's only a minute and 12 seconds, so it's over pretty quickly. Some of the other songs that we've been talking about, like the first 4 songs are over 3 minutes long, so it's awful short, and it's kind of forgettable, to be honest.
Luckily though, it's followed by
Light of Angels.
The big one.
Total Belter.
Woo!
City of Angels.
big mega banger
Yeah.
at the time.
It's their most listened to song on Spotify as well, with 15 million listens.
Wow.
I am surprised at that.
I remember it was
But
on
said
the Casey Chaos Refuse Music compilation.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was like,
Oh, really?
I absolutely loved the
Fucking
song
right,
when it was on that. It was like one of the ones that I would always go to.
You know, one day we're going to do
Yeah, that was a life changer.
compilation mixtape.
Yeah,
and that
but the
is
thing,
a real
I
contender.
went to.
Oh, yeah.
Alas, I went to Inverness HMV and there was no Distillers, but there was Nasum, so my life was changed forever.
Oh, no. was there not a Virgin
No, there
mega
was
store in
HMV
Inverness?
and then there was DR Records, which everybody said drug related records. That was the little independent vinyl shop that also sold baggy jeans and chains and definitely weed from under the desk. But
Yeah.
So the production on this song is significantly different to the rest of the record. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's built to be a single, like sonically.
Yeah, well, it would have probably been remixed because somebody would have heard it and been like, right, okay, spend extra time on that, get it radio compressed so it can stand it.
Yeah, it's totally different, but it's obviously because it was a single, they recorded a music video for it, but they also recorded a music video for the Young Crazed Peeling, but didn't release that as a single, which I thought was really weird. And when I was trying to find out a bit more information about that, I saw on Discogs that there was a DVD release of Young Crazed Peeling in the City of Angels that also had an MTV news segment for You Hear It First for the Distillers. So maybe they kind of released that like a single, and it was a legitimate release. It's not a bootleg or anything. It was through Hellcat. Totally bizarre.
That is pretty
These were
strange,
different
yeah.
times, Anna.
Yeah.
But like we've said, it's a tune, an absolute tune.
It's a great song.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
my favourite bit about this song, and I think it's maybe the best thing they do full stop in their career, is for the last chorus.
Key change?
There's an extra high chant, like kind of gang vocal.
Yes.
It's kind of contrapuntal to the rest of the vocals and it just kind of overlaps. It's just really anthemic. It's a great little... I don't know who came up with that. They were maybe just humming it in their head in the background while people were mixing, but it's a brilliant addition.
That's quite a common thing for Hellcat bands of that time. Tiger Army did it, Roger Mary and the Disasters, probably lots of F-, other bands like that. They did that kind of sound. So yeah, it was quite common in that style of punk at that time.
It's got a wee hint of oi to it, I get that, because of it, but it's just enough. I think it's a brilliant.
It is. I loved the music video for this. I remember being so obsessed with it at the time. I was at a house party and every time it came on P-Rock,
yeah, the best one.
remember that channel?
Yeah, totally.
I'd like run to the telly and be sitting watching it, pure excited by it. Couldn't believe that this punk band that I'd been listening to for a couple of years before it were then on the telly. That was fascinating for me. And the music video was filmed in Clifton's cafeteria in LA. So when I was there in October 2015, they had just refurbished and reopened Clifton's. And I went down there and got my husband to take a photo of me in the booth that the music video was filmed in. So yeah, lots of nostalgia for that song.
It's then followed by Young Girl, which is more fully formed than the secret track on the first record.
We were young girls in a small world, and we was dead man, rebel again. We were young.
I think it's a really nice tune. The lyrics are kind of weird. It's like an ode to lost youth, like you said earlier on, Anna.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool song. It's maybe not. It's not as immediately catchy as the other ones, but it hangs together really well as a tune, and it's clearly been worked on a lot more since the last record.
Yeah.
I think it sits quite nicely.
Yeah, and the way that it's a bit softer than the other songs, it doesn't immediately open with like punchy guitars or bass line. It's building up the lyrics in it. You know, the way that the actual musical aspect of the song fits with the lyrics really nicely. So I think it's good and it's well placed. I think after City of Angels, trying to gradually get you back into the shoutier stuff.
Yeah, but then they hit you with 3 hardcore punk songs basically back to back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got Hate Me, which has got, like I said earlier on, it's got Casper on the first verse doing vocals, which is why it sounds really kind of weird but cool. And then Brody on the second verse. It's like a really super intense song. It's got a cool lead line in the second chorus as well at the end, which I think is quite nice. It's kind of over before it's really begun. And then you've got Desperate after that as well, which has some cool guitar tones.
Yeah, 1 minute and 22 seconds. Hate Me is only 1 minute and 10, but Desperate's good. I think it follows on really well from Hate Me. I would say the songs aren't too dissimilar from each other, but I like that. I think that it flows.
We've got I Understand. Which is again a kind of about her upbringing, I suppose. It's kind of chaotic, this song, which I thought was probably reflective for the lyrics, to be honest. It's got that really cool middle section where it breaks down and then goes slower before going back into the big chorus, and then slows down for halftime after that as well, which is really nice. It actually reminds me of really early Bad Religion, like first album stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's the last song that I like on the album.
Lordy Lordy, that reminds me of the Pogues for some reason.
Oh, fuck, man. It's just... that is... It just doesn't fit with any Distillers song or sound ever. It's like a pure... It's like Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer doing their impersonations of pub singers.
I've written...
Oh, God.
It's kind of like ska, but without the horns and using distorted guitars. It's kind of jaunty. It's odd.
Oh, it's not jaunty in a good way. See, for me, it's just... It's like...
And I got your mic.
It's like
It's throwing her head about.
It's like at the time everybody was into flogging Molly and the Dropkick.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
And
Yeah.
all of that.
All right.
See, for me, it's just like how at the time people were into flogging Molly and the Dropkick Murphys and all of that faux Celtic pish. That's how it sounds, and I don't like it, and it doesn't fit with the album, and I find it highly disappointing that they would end on such a bum note.
I agree.
So
Thank
we're
you.
agreed that this album is fine then.
Oh, no way, man. It's
Good choice, Mark.
Well, I mean, I think Coral Fang is just as inconsistent. I think the first half of Coral Fang is full of complete bangers as well, but I think it really peters out towards the end, but even more so because the last 3 songs for me, they just barely happen, and then you've got Death Sex at the end, which is just fucking madness.
I quite like Death Sex.
So
There's like
noise.
a minute and a half of a song, at the beginning, isn't there?
yeah, and it's just random weirdness, like for
Yeah, I'm
for
into that.
yeah.
He is into that. To be fair, he's got previous in that.
Yeah.
So as I go back to my original point, is I don't think the Distillers have made an entirely consistent album. However, the singles are fucking amazing, and I think that they're worth nominating, not just for that, but also because I think they are unsung as a band.
Well, also, and how immensely
very
influential she was as a figurehead.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
She is.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger point. Like Dave's saying, I don't want to speak for women here, but I can imagine there are few bands as a young female punk fan or punk enthusiast that are as inspiring as the Distillers or Brody Dalle generally. Like,
Oh,
it's
totally. See, for me at the time, I was a massive punk fan, but I wasn't, in terms of modern punk bands, there weren't that many modern punk bands that I was into that had female vocalists, because I've said to you before, I don't like the higher sounding female vocals, that's not what I'm into. So to hear somebody who sounded like Joan Jett or any of the female vocalists that we mentioned earlier, it was so different for me, and my friends were into the Riot Girl stuff, like the Tigra and bands like that, and it just wasn't my thing. So to find someone with such a powerful voice who played in a fantastic punchy punk band, who was beautiful, wore really cool clothes, she was just the epitome of cool for me at the time, and then continued actually to be somebody that I really thought was amazing for so long. You know, I'm talking about when I went to see her just a few years ago for her solo stuff. She's someone that I would always continue to follow what she does, and I find her to be someone who's really musically interesting and cool.
I think Brody Dalle's written a lot of amazing songs. I picked the Distillers record, which is my favourite Distillers record, but that is about the greater point. Like, the Distillers are hugely influential. Spinneret and Brody Dalle solo stuff, clearly less so. As an individual, she's obviously extremely influential. I do think that this record should be in discography because of that.
I do think Coral Fang is a slightly better record, but I agree with you that I think this band should be represented, and Brody Dalle especially should be represented for her ability as a songwriter, and especially, as you say, a writer of great singles. Albeit, with that caveat, I'm going to say yes, because I'm not sure that we'd come back to Coral Fang, and I think it would be a bit of a sin if there wasn't some representation overall.
Yeah, I think Coral Fang is certainly not an unsung album.
Disagree.
Really?
Strong disagree.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so well known.
Number 94 in the US.
Yeah, at the time that it came out, but they gained so much traction after that, and when people talk about the Distillers, it's songs off of Coral Fang that are the ones that are the big numbers.
Yeah, but not compared to their peers.
Aye, yeah, that's
a
true.
good question. Who are the Distillers' peers, though? Yeah, so maybe you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think I'd be more likely to listen to Coral Fang, but I totally agree that they should go in, and she needs good representation. I just want to throw a total curveball in here. I like the kind of like the poppier, rockier stuff rather than the punkier stuff by the Distillers, right? And when I was on holiday with my parents in Mallorca in 2001, we went into the supermarket and I just picked up a random CD, and it was this Spanish punk rock band, female fronted. They were called Dover. I bought the album, took it home, and me and all my pals just fucking loved it and listened to it all the time. The album was called I Was Dead for 7 Weeks in the City of Angels, funnily enough. And this came out in September 2001. And it's like a little bit more poppy, and there's a song that sounds like Green Day on it, and there's some acoustic guitar. But if you like the sort of poppier end of Distillers, I would highly recommend going and finding this record. I don't even think it's on Spotify. It's like, yeah, it's a lost Spanish punk rock classic. But yeah, go and find that.
That's cool.
That's mad.
Can I just check something? So,
it's in the town Dover.
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 Yeah, so that
no, Dover.
No,
right.
No, Dover.
Well, that makes
Dover.
it even better.
Yes.
If you're Scottish, that was a big payoff at the end of the episode.
That's awesome.
Yes,
all right. Did you guys get?
Yeah. So, Mark, you have to go first. It's your record.
This is the first time we're seeing Nexus tonight. Will it be the last? What do they have in store for us? Not good.
Why am I here? You're in the Nexus. This is the Nexus. For you, this is what you want.
last week, Vicky Henry picked Brack from Space
Coast to
Ghost, Hanna-Barbera character. Coast to Coast, yeah. So, Mark, you're first.
Yeah, so Brody Dalle appeared on a Garbage song, Girls Talk, and Shirley Manson from Garbage also appears on Brody Dalle's solo album. Shirley Manson actually appeared on an episode of Space Ghost in 1998, and it's called Curses, and she's also on it alongside Moby. And on the episode, Space Ghost is driven to eat all of his guests. So that's my link. It's only two, but
Yeah,
I want
that
to
was
talk
good.
about
That's
it.
You haven't done a
amazing.
quick one for a while, Mark. Okay, am I allowed to mention myself in this? Have we done that before?
Go for it.
So, funnily
Bonus
enough, I went
point.
to Garbage and Shirley Manson as well after the Distillers. Garbage in 2018 played in Edinburgh, supported by the Edinburgh band Honeyblood. And Honeyblood, at one point, I put them on in the art school in Glasgow. And then another artist that I've put on is a man called Romeo Taylor. Scotland's
Yes.
best musical export right now. Romeo Taylor, a year and a half ago, supported the artist Tiffany. Tiffany, as in I think we're
Tiffany
alone
as
now.
in
I think you're alone
And
now.
she absolutely
Oh my
loved him, and
goodness.
he was confused as to why he was there, but it was great. Tiffany also appeared in Jetsons the movie as Judy Jetson in 1990. Yeah, that was a 1990 animated movie version of the Jetsons, and yeah, that was a Hanna-Barbera movie. Hanna-Barbera, of course, produced Space Ghost Brack.
Well, yeah, Hanna-Barbera made the original cartoons, and Space Ghost
Yep.
Coast to Coast is a cannibalisation of them. And Brack appeared in the Council of Evil or Council of Doom or whatever the fuck it was in that original series. Anna, do you want to go or will I?
I'll go because yours are always the best. So we'll save the best till last.
Plan.
I'm done. I'm quitting.
We start off with Brody and the Distillers, and they were on Hellcat Records, as we've mentioned. Also on Hellcat Records were Lars Fredriksson and the Bastards. Lars Fredriksson, along with Nick 13, Davey Havoc, Mike Dirnt, Trey Cool, Billy Joe Armstrong, and a whole host of other Californian musicians, were voice actors in the stop-motion animated musical independent film Live Freaky, Die Freaky, which is a black comedy based on the Charles Manson murders. Billy Joe Armstrong was also a voice actor in an episode of King of the Hill.
Did not know that.
Really?
And Fox broadcast King of the Hill, and CNN newsreader Chris Como used to work for Fox News.
So he started at Fox
He
News
started
as like a junior, and then he got signed by CNN. He's the guy that just got coronavirus, by the way. He's like been doing daily updates about his condition.
And
He's been
how's he feeling? Is he doing okay?
pretty bad, actually.
Oh, right, okay.
He got what they called is it Rigers or something like that? It's like the violent.
Oh, yeah,
shakes.
the reaction that your
Yeah,
organs have, yeah.
So he got that so bad that he chipped, he broke off part of one of his teeth.
Oh, my God,
damn.
that's awful.
from the physical shakings and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's
But his brother Andrew Cuomo is the governor of New York. He's that guy that's been on TV being amazing.
Oh, that's good,
doing all the
yeah.
shit that Donald Trump should be doing.
Should
That's his
be
brother.
doing.
Anyway, sorry.
So-
So the Chris
Yeah.
Cuomo is at CNN now.
Yeah, and CNN is owned by Warner, who own Adult Swim, which put out the Brack Show.
You're done.
Yeah, great.
All right. Distillers. Brody Dalle was married to Tim Armstrong. Tim Armstrong.
He was?
We should have mentioned that. We should have talked about that at some point.
You know what? Tim Armstrong's actually also in Live Freaky, Die Freaky, but I didn't mention that because I thought I'll try and avoid it, but since you've came back to it as well.
He's had too much airtime, but I need him right now. I'm just using him. So in 2012, Rancid played at Flea's 50th birthday party in LA. Alongside the Red Hot Chili Peppers, obviously, because Flea plays his own birthday parties, because that's what you do. That was actually like a fundraiser as well for a music school that Flea runs called Silver Lake Conservatory. part of that, by the way, was they auctioned off a Banksy, which I think they got about $100,000 for, to raise money for the school. Anyway, that party was attended by, as you can imagine, all kinds of like movers and shakers, including Rick Rubin, the actor Owen Wilson, and the actor Ed Norton. Ed Norton was the star of the movie American History X. In the film American History X, they mention a whole bunch of gangs and groups from LA, including the Lil Locos, the Big Locos, and V13. And both those Locos are kind of subsidiaries of V13, which is like one of the bigger kind of Hispanic gangs in that part of Los Angeles. V standing for Venice, as in Venice Beach. So the Venice 13. Now, you might have heard of a fella called Mike Muir. Psycho Michael.
No.
I don't know.
Anyone?
No, sorry.
Right. Psycho Michael is the lead singer of the group Suicide Tendencies.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amory Smith, who's a member of that band, Suicidal Tendencies have got a ridiculous number of people that have passed through that band, including Robert Trujillo, who's now at
You're right, plays for them now. Do you know who's in the band now?
I imagine
Dave
it's
Lombardo
like
plays drums for them.
Buckethead.
And Ben Weinman from
George Bush.
Dillinger Escape Plan plays guitar for them.
He's covering for a guitarist just now, apparently, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so Amory Smith was in the original lineup and in the original band photos. And in those original band photos for Suicidal Tendencies, Amory Smith was wearing a baseball cap and a bandana under it. And the bandana said V13. Now, that caused loads of problems because people saw him as wearing gang colours and, like, gang colours of a really quite a dangerous group. And it turned out he'd actually just borrowed that bandana from one of the other guys in the band's brother, who was a member or affiliated with V13. And they went through this whole controversy because people thought they were endorsing or somehow affiliated with this gang that at the time was in the news, along with I think Santa Monica had the 13 as well, the SM13. And they were all in the news at that time in the States. Suicidal Tendencies denied any real involvement. That's where that whole Suicidal Psychos following came from as well. Anyway, long story short, Suicidal Tendencies were covered in 2018 on an album titled Dr. Tomento's Covered in Punk, which was this really wacky group of artists doing various famous punk songs. And the track Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies was covered by Brack.
Oh, well, there you go.
Wow. There he is. That's why he's the best.
And you know that's getting cut in right now because it's fantastic.
You should talk about it. You'll feel a whole lot better. And I go, no, it's okay. You know, I'll figure it out. Just leave me alone and I'll figure it out. You know, I'll just work it out myself. And they go, well, you know, if you want to talk about it, I'll be here, you know, and you'll probably feel a little better.
Right, so we're done. And that means, Dave, it's your choice next week.
All right, yeah, I'm going to go back to dance music for a bit, I think. Go do Daft Punk's debut album, Homework.
Excellent.
That's a left turn.
Pretty legendary. I mean, we're arguing about 94 in the US charts for Distillers. Is that?
Yeah, but I mean, it's critically acclaimed, but compared to Daft Punk, the sort of mainstream pop act that they are now, this is a legendary dance album that I don't think anybody that likes Get Lucky will have listened to at all.
That's true. That's a fair point.
Sweet. All right. Well, that'll be an interesting one. Anna, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much.
A pleasure. Thank you. Oh, we better do a Nexus.
Oh,
for next week.
Got it. There you go. In fact, there's video evidence that I'm doing this and not just making these up.
Definitely do that. We would say that though, because we're all in video chat with them.
Anna, tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, you guys can read it. I'm not even going to read it.
Can I read it?
It's going to be back to front, is it? No. It's upside down. Davy Bright has suggested, or Davy Bright has suggested Oscar Pistorius. So that's a good one.
Oscar edgy.
He's not been in the news for a wee while, so big Oscar we're going to get from Daft Punk to big Oscar next week. Alright guys, thank you very much. That was a pleasure.
Thank you all.
Anna. I hope everybody is well. Stay safe.
Anna, you keep setting the standard for self-isolation.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's me. I've not been living normal life for the last month, and yeah, slowly adapting to it. It's not too bad. I'm busier now than I ever was when I was out in the real world, so so there's hope for us all.
All right, guys. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.